Hello my dorks, it's the Dork Author here, and welcome back to Creepypasta Debunking. This is episode 12. So, I know this is going to be directly after I did the one with Squidward's suicide, but I actually did this one first, technically. But I took it down, as you guys know. As you can tell by the title, we are going to be covering Abandoned by Disney. Again. Except this time I'm going to have the facts right, because I've actually reread the story again recently, and hopefully now I should be able to get everything right. My apologies to Slime Beast for messing up the facts, and hopefully it shouldn't happen again. Without any further delays, let's ask, is Abandoned by Disney real? And is photonegative Mickey there, wanting his next victim? Let's find out. Now the story is way too long for me to cover in its entirety, but you can always view my narration of Abandoned by Disney. But I'm going to summarise the story right now. Abandoned by Disney tells the tale of a writer detailing his experiences with an abandoned Disney theme park that they left to rot. He mentions Treasure Island, which was a theme park that Disney blew $30 million on before completely abandoning it for no reason. The writer didn't buy all of the excuses and reasoning from Disney as to why they left the theme park to rot. The reason why is because of another abandoned theme park called Mowgli's Palace. Unlike Treasure Island, which was located in Baker's Bay in the Bahamas, Mowgli's Palace was located in Emerald Isle in North Carolina. It was modelled from Mowgli, the character from the Jungle Book, and was a jungle-themed resort with other jungle themings, like the main characters walking around. Some wore loincloths, others wore tribal clothing, and the entire area was decorated with typical tribal and wild decor. The writer mentions how the project was never liked by anybody outside of Disney, how nearly all of the locals were against the idea. Disney bought up a ton of priced land and tried to pass it off as eminent domain, which inadvertently pissed off the locals. One day, out of curiosity, the writer decides to take a trip over to Emerald Isle so they can see Mowgli's Palace. They lived roughly 4 hours away from the resort, and it took them over a year to get the finances and other things to prepare for the trip. Upon arriving at the decaying theme park, they took in all of the sights around them. Much of the decor in the area had fallen to nature's grasp. All the fake props were now being overtaken and regrown by nature. Many buildings were now simply empty husks of their former selves, with wood and metal deteriorating over time. At first the trip was normal, albeit slightly eerie due to being inside of an abandoned theme park. The writer detailed all of the interesting things they came across, like a giant statue of Baloo near the centre of the place. They also spotted the main building of the place, the palace. However, near the entrance of the palace was something that looked quite off. It was a sign hanging above it, crudely made, with the words, "Abandoned by Disney," painted onto it. The writer simply brushed this off, thinking that it was due to the locals or possible trespassers putting this up to mess with Disney. During the time spent there, the writer's anxiety and overall composure slowly begun to dwindle. They could hear whispering coming from rooms, sounding like ghosts having a past conversation. Meat hooks near one of the kitchens swaying back and forth on their own. Wildlife that was once belonging to Disney had now fled their enclosures and were now roaming the park. Boa constrictors and sharks hung around. They needed to catch their breath after witnessing some of the sights, and looking for a chair to sit down at inside the palace, they eyed a couple stairs leading down to some more rooms. The stairs had an alarming amount of dust, so they withdrew another panel with the infamous "Abandoned by Disney" painted over it, and they took a sit down. Once they had composed themselves, they proceeded down the stairs. Using their camera as an improvised torch, they came to the end of the staircase, which simply led to a metal mesh door. This door had a padlock. but above the door was a sign. A real one. This one was unlike the crude and thrown together signs that they had seen. This one was a real sign. The sign read, "Mascots Only Room. Thank you." A small flicker of hope begun to rise within the writer. A Mascots Only Room would clearly have some interesting and impressive things within it. Even better, the padlock wasn't broken, so no other visitors or inhabitants of the island had entered that room. After taking some time, they successfully busted down the door and peeked inside. The place looked less abandoned and more post-apocalyptic. Suits and other kinds of outfits hung still and unused on the walls. There were clocks, pens, and other miscellaneous items lying about. The writer attempted to try and touch these things and analyse them, but every time they would touch something wood, it would crumple into mush, even if they applied the littlest amount of friction. The clothings would simply tear up in their hands as well. The room smelled like the inside of a damp, dark cave. After wandering through the room for some time, they eventually approached a door at the back of the place. Stenciled on the door was the words, "Character Prep 1. Unlike the previous door, this door held firm and strong, and no matter what attempt was made, the door simply would not budge. The writer assumed that this is where the mascots and other suits were kept. They relented and turned to exit the room, when all of a sudden, the door slowly creaked open on itself and allowed access for the writer. The room was pitch black. No light was within the room. The room was exactly as the writer thought it was. Costumes and other suits laid about on the floor and hung up on coat hangers. The writer was amazed at all of this stuff just being left about, untouched for ages. Clothing, however, wouldn't hold a candle to the most odd thing in the room. Lying in the center of the Character Prep 1 room was a Mickey Mouse costume, laid out in a more sinister way. It was laid out like it was a murder victim. The most odd and noticeable detail that the writer picked up on was the coloration of the suit. It was coloured entirely in photo negative. White where Mickey should be black, blue where he should be red, and overall the coloration was wrong. They hesitated upon taking a photo and continued exploring the room. They came across a headpiece of a former Donald Duck costume. Upon picking it up to analyse it, they heard something clatter and crash to the floor at their feet. They peeked down with intrigue to see what had clattered by their feet, and what they saw shocked them to their core. A human skull had clattered out of the thing, and had crumpled into dust right in front of the writer. Only the empty face and the lower jaw remained of the thing. The writer took a step back and snapped a picture because they just had to. They needed proof of all of this madness. They needed evidence to prove that Disney was lying, and they clearly were making up the whole story. But that's when the photo-negative Mickey Mouse suit started to get up. First sitting up, and then slowly clambering to its feet. This photo-negative Mickey Mouse costume stared the writer down with intent. The writer's legs instantly became jelly, and they froze to the spot as they stared down the suit that was sizing them up with fear. The thing said in a hushed, perverted, but oddly perfect Mickey Mouse voice.
Wanna see my head come off?
The suit then begun to tear off its own head, clawing at its neck with impatient, animalistic movements, similar to a wounded man pulling themselves free from a predator. It continued to work its digits into its neck. So much blood, so much thick, chunky yellow blood erupted out of the thing like a geyser. The writer stood around no longer, and as soon as they could hear tearing flesh and cloth, they ran out of the room in a panic. Above the doorway of the room, the writer spotted one final message, clawed into metal, was the phrase, "Abandoned by God." So then, that was a short summary of Abandoned by Disney. However, if you want the full thing, the story is out there, and you can always watch my narration, which I will link in the description of this video. A very interesting story, no doubt, and certainly one that can give a lot of fright to people. It certainly scared me when I was younger when I first heard this story. And come to think of it, this is one of those stories that could have some kind of reality. River Country is an abandoned Disney theme park that was left to rot. Discovery Island is another Disney theme park that was left to rot. Who's to say that there isn't another one, with some dark, mysterious things happening within it? But I digress. Let's get back to the topic at hand. Is Abandoned by Disney real? And is there a photo-negative Mickey Mouse costume out there, waiting to kill you? Well, yes and no. Now before you freak out, let me explain, because it's kind of weird. Now the part of it saying Disney blew $30 million on a place in the Bahamas, then completely abandoning it, is true. The place they were looking to buy is located in the Bahamas on Great Guana Cay. I believe I've got that right, if not, correct me. That was the island name. Disney was rather sneaky with this purchase, not directly going with their own company, I believe, but instead with a cruise line that they partnered with, called Premier Cruise Lines. The Disney involvement stuff was to be built at the top of the island in Baker's Bay. It was to be called Treasure Cay, or Treasure Key, however you want to say it. There were a bunch of buildings constructed around the area, and this was 100% a thing. They were going to do it. However, like the Creepypasta stated, there was issues with the cruise stuff behind the scenes, and eventually Disney backed out of the whole deal, and did leave the park to crumble. Footage of the place is kind of hard to come by, but there are photos and proof of its existence out there. Now the park doesn't exist anymore, it's been demolished since. But yeah, there really was an abandoned place in the Bahamas that had some Disney involvement in it. However, there is no photo-negative Mickey Mouse costume, and there is no place in the world called Mowgli's Palace, so that part of the creepypasta is fake. No suit like that can come and attack you. Besides, I'm sure Disney wouldn't purposefully colour their character wrong. If they're gonna colour Mickey wrong, you'd think they'd colour all the other costumes wrong, wouldn't you, if they were doing a theme? Also, there would be news reports on this by far. Nearly anything to do with Disney, bad or good, would involve a news report. River Country and other things got announcements when they were closed down, so this park should also follow suit. And I'm not sure that Disney could cover all of this up. Also, suits just can't stand on their own and attack you. I doubt that anybody could live there in that park for extended periods of time, especially considering of how decayed and rough the place is. All the food and necessary supplies would clearly have been ebbed away by time, so no person could successfully live there and sustain themselves. So yeah, part of this story is true. There really was an abandoned theme park that was planned by Disney, but I don't think it was fully seen through on Disney's end. They backed out of it before it could fully continue. But Mowgli's Palace is not real. None of that exists. Hopefully I've gotten all the facts correct. I probably haven't, but just take it with a grain of salt. I've been trying to do my research more on this, and I've reread the story a few times trying to pick up on minute details. So hopefully I got it all right. I probably haven't though, but I tried my best. At the end of the day, no photo-negative Mickey Mouse suit can come and kill you, Mowgli's Palace isn't real, and overall, you have nothing to fear from the story. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Creepypasta Debunking. If you did, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, Hit the bell so you can stay up to date with my latest videos. You can always unsubscribe later, it's free. And don't forget to comment down below, what creepypasta should I tackle next in my debunking videos? This has been the Dark Author. Take care, my dorks.